All right, welcome everybody to the Pigskin Prognosis podcast. I'm here with Zach.
Hey everybody.
Zach, say hi. And as you guys should hopefully know, after last week's episode, I am Sully. This is for week 5, so we're wrapping up week 4 of this NFL season right now. I actually have the Lions game and Seahawks planned right now. Interesting week of football, Zach. What do you think?
A lot of surprise games, a lot of low-scoring games that I thought should have had some touchdowns, a lot of high-scoring games that I wasn't expecting, a lot of close games, a lot of one-possession games. But yeah, very interesting to say the very least. But we'll dig into that, I'm sure, in the next hour.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Also, just want to say too that our podcast is now on Spotify as well as YouTube. So check that out wherever you guys get the chance to. All the listeners.
Yeah, like, subscribe, give us a shout out, follow, comment, whatever you want, and give us some criticism and give us some ideas, whatever you think we can talk about, or any questions you may have regarding football. Shoot it over to us.
All right, so I guess we'll start off with just scores of the game. What would you say the game that surprised you the most score-wise probably was from this past week?
You know, to be completely honest, the number one game that sticks out to me is the Broncos-Jets game. Score of 10-9. And I'll get into more statistics about, the fantasy side of it in a second. But yeah, only one touchdown scored in that entire game. You got Aaron Rodgers on one side of the ball with the Jets, and you got Bo Nix. Sorry, I have a motorcycle driving by right now. I didn't want to keep talking. You got Aaron Rodgers on one side of the ball with the Jets. You got Bo Nix on the other side of the ball with the Broncos. And only one touchdown in favor of the Broncos. They ended up winning it 10-9. So that was just the one game that stuck out to me, probably on the lower, more underwhelming side of things. And then I would say another game that stuck out to me on the opposite end of the spectrum, that was a real nail biter, came down to the last minute, that I really enjoyed watching, was the Falcons and Saints game. The division rivalry between those two is amazing. Saints ultimately came out on top with
Nope.
game.
Atlanta did.
Oh, I'm sorry. That I meant, yeah, that's what I meant to say. I looked down and saw the Saints on my phone, but meant to say the Falcons. The Falcons came out on top with a game-winning field goal by Younghoe Koo, who we will also talk about fantasy point wise here in a couple of minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'd agree with the Denver one. I mean, you got two pretty stout defenses. Jets with Sauce Gardner, Denver with arguably the best cornerback in the NFL in Patrick Surtain. Shut down Garrett Wilson. Another thing we end up talking about too, fantasy wise, here in a second. You had the Atlanta Saints game being the surprise to you. What surprised me on the higher end of the spectrum was Washington and Arizona.
Yeah.
Jaden Daniels. I watched the guy at Arizona State. I ended up watching him a little bit at LSU. I think he ends up winning. If he stays healthy and keeps this up, I think he ends up winning Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year.
At least.
He just made Arizona look silly, at least defensively. The man was doing everything. I think rushing TD, at least a few passing touchdowns. I'd have to look up actual more specific stats here.
I think he had 2 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown for himself.
Yeah,
he threw for over 200.
Yeah, we can get to the stats and stuff, I guess, when we start talking about fantasies. I'm pretty sure he's up there, if I remember correctly. Excuse me. And then looking at some more scores too, Minnesota, Green Bay. Minnesota almost blew a 28-0 lead.
Yeah, that was big.
Blew my mind. You had Sam Darnold out there looking like he's Tom Brady in his prime, just throwing absolute dimes all night. And then Carolina losing to Cincinnati. Was hoping it was going to be the other way around, especially me being a Panthers fan. But you win some, you lose some. Andy Dalton looked pretty good out there, minus that one pick, which wasn't really his fault. They got batted at the line. Can't really blame the QB for that, but
yeah, that was a tough interception. He was on a good march for that drive. And ultimately, it's crazy to look at his passer rating because it's so low compared to Joe Burrow. But he still threw for very similar statistics.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he 25 for 40, 220 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. Burrow went 22 for 31, 232 with 2 touchdowns and an interception. Almost identical stat lines, and the passer rating is 17 points apart.
Yeah, that's passer rating stuff, so it makes sense. I know it factors a bunch of stuff into it, but
Yeah.
still way above my math comprehension. um, but what about, did you end up watching any Sunday night game, the Buffalo Raven game?
Yeah, I was actually a little disappointed in the Bills. That's on my talking point here. Actually, it's one of my top ones for the surprise scores. Kind of a mix of both. You know, you got a good team in Buffalo this year, or excuse me. Oh man, I'm all over the place tonight. You have a good team in Baltimore. I do think they are for real, even though their record doesn't quite show it yet. I think, they've had a lot of close games. They've been able to pull out. I think they're 3-1 if I'm not mistaken, or no, they're 2-2. I'm sorry.
2-2 for the Ravens.
That's right, because they started 0-2. But the Bills just didn't. They were 3-0 going into that game, and they just did not look like a 3-0 team. I don't know what it was. I don't know if they just had an off week. Kincaid was one of my, which we'll talk about in a second, but one of my surprise low scorers for fantasy football. He just couldn't get anything going offensively. Him or, you know, Josh Allen. It just really surprised me that offense in Buffalo for some reason just wasn't working. But and then on the other side of things, you had Derrick Henry. He was one of my top fantasy scorers that I'd like to talk about. He had an 87-yard touchdown run, which is the longest in Baltimore Ravens history.
Yep, which is crazy to think about.
That's a big man running a long way for a long time, and man, was he looking good when he was running. That was a great run. That was fun to watch.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I watched the game on my phone for a little bit, but yeah, going back to the Buffalo thing. I mean, week 1 they played the Cardinals, won by 8 points there. 6 points. Sorry, I can't do math. We established this earlier. 6 points. And then week 2 they played the Dolphins on Thursday night, and that was a game that Tua got hurt in, and they won 31-10. Week 3 they beat Jacksonville, who honestly didn't look like a football team. So, I mean, in my opinion, your first 3 weeks are against teams that are lower on the skill level, I guess would be the way I word that.
Yeah.
And then you go in and you go into Baltimore to play the Ravens, a team that kind of had a chip on their shoulder. The way it's starting off with the way they did 0-2 and just looked dominant. Derrick Henry is, if you do daily fantasy, highly recommend picking up Derrick Henry and anyone. I know his price is going to go through the roof now that he had just a 200-yard game and 2 touchdowns on Sunday night. And then, which is just a crazy thought. Their defense looked good. Josh Allen, I don't know. I was glad to see that he wasn't trying to do every single thing, on the offense, because that's usually what leads into mistakes. But I don't know. It just seemed off. I don't know if it's just because of the caliber of teams they were playing or what the deal was. But
yeah, I agree with you there. It did seem very like there was a big mismatch offensively, and I mean, and defensively too. They were able to. Baltimore was just able to pick him apart, running and throwing it. They had a lot of explosive plays that just kind of tore Buffalo apart and just made them look silly all night long. So, and I think after that, I mean, the Derrick Henry run was like 5 minutes into the game. So
yeah, that was the Ravens' first possession.
Yeah, you can't really. I mean, that kind of set the tone for the entire game. And it's tough because I don't think Buffalo expected to have that much explosiveness coming from Baltimore, but knowing Baltimore, and I think they very well know how well of a team that they have, how good of a team they have. They kind of played with a chip on their shoulder, and I think they kind of established themselves as a good team, if they haven't already made that known over the last 3 weeks because of their 0-2, 1-2 record going into week 4. I think it was established early in that game that they made business and they were trying to go 500 into week 5.
100%.
But the Buffalo schedule, I'm looking at the Buffalo schedule right now, and to be completely honest, nothing really stands out to me except the game with the Lions, and that's not all the way until like week 15 or 14. Um, I'm really, I'm really not expecting the Buffalo Bills to drop a lot of games. They play the Jets twice. They play the Patriots twice. They play the Titans. They play the Dolphins. They play the Colts, which I mean, the Colts could be here or there depending on who plays. Anthony Richardson is hurt. We'll talk about that in a minute. And they also play the Texans and the Chiefs. Um, those are some solid teams that I would expect them to maybe put up a good fight. But then you move down into the December games. You got the 49ers, who are pretty unpredictable, I would say, this year. And then the Rams, who are nowhere near the caliber that you were expecting, but that's because of injury, mainly to Cooper Cup and Puka Nakua. So maybe by the second, or actually more like the last 6 weeks of the season, you're going to get hopefully a healthy Rams team, hopefully a still healthy Lions team, and the 49ers that can hopefully figure their game out, and that'll make it a little more difficult for the Bills. But up until December, I don't see the Bills dropping more than 2 or 3 games. And if they drop 3, it'd be really a surprise. So who knows?
Yeah, I mean, with the way the season's gone, I mean, there's been upsets, especially week 1, 2, and 3. I think it knocked a bunch of us out of Survivor leagues. I think ESPN said that there was, as of the end of week 3, I think it was 90% of ESPN Survivor League brackets have already been busted. So, and I know I was one of them in week 2. So,
Yeah,
I think you were in 3. So,
yeah.
Yeah. Going back to the Buffalo schedule stuff. Yeah, next week they got Houston, which could go either way. I know Nico Collins is a little injured, banged up. Seemed to kind of make it through. Jets, defensively, the Jets are good. Offensively, they're a disaster, it seems, even though they've got Garrett Wilson and Brees Hall. And they play the Titans. Yeah, I mean, looking at it too, I mean, I agree with you. I don't see coming from at least before December them losing maybe 2 games, like you said, but I don't see much more than that.
Yeah. And I mean, but then you also have to account for the trade deadline too. So we'll see. It's way too early to be talking about trade deadlines, I'm thinking, but just to keep that in the back of your head, looking forward at the Bills schedule, just to see them have it looks like a very easy schedule in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think we're good on the Bills, unless you got anything else more you want to talk about that game. I think we're good.
No, I'd rather move that past. I had a lot of money on the Bills that game, but yeah.
As you can see, we're not professionals by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, we are not. Absolutely not. I definitely lose more money than I make every week. Don't tell my wife, but I try my best to. I do a lot of parlays, but yeah, not very good. Right now, this Miami game is just destroying my parlay. So, yeah.
All right. I guess we can start talking about the reason why people are here. Fantasy.
Yeah.
We can do like we did last week, highs and lows.
Yeah, so I kind of came up with a list already. I looked through. These are all ESPN numbers, and I kind of came up with a couple in my opinions. Some top scorers. We already talked about one of them in Derrick Henry. 32.9 on ESPN leagues. He had that 87-yard touchdown run, which is the longest in Baltimore history. He just looked like he was back to his old flow with Tennessee when he was back there. That stout, buff running back, that big man, but he's got some speed. I mean, that 87-yard touchdown, I didn't think he was going to go all the way. I thought maybe around the 50-yard line, he was either going to run out of gas or one of those safeties were going to come and trip him up, but he made it all the way. So that was a big a top scorer for me was Derrick Henry, and hopefully looking into the Ravens schedule, I think that he's got a lot of opportunity to score a lot of good points. He's got a lot of division games against the Bengals and the Browns, who are not doing too well. The Broncos are on there, which again, one of the good defenses, but kind of unpredictable early in the season. The Chargers are on there. Who knows what the Chargers have to come for them? I mean, their defense isn't looking too solid. They're giving up a lot of points per game. And I know it's probably too early, and there's a lot of fans out there that might be like, "What are you talking about? I don't think you're right in this one." But Baltimore against Philly, that's a game that I look forward to because I think that's going to bring out a lot of rivalry. Those two teams have a lot of history against each other, and I think that this last week kind of proved to us that the Philadelphia Eagles are not invincible. They can be broken. And you have Baker Mayfield to thank
will
that.
put a caveat on that. I don't mean to cut you off, but I will
No,
put
go
a
ahead.
caveat on that they didn't look great, but they were also without their 2-star receivers.
That's true. That is, I will give them the benefit of the doubt, but I don't want to take too much away from the Buccaneers because the Bucks look solid this year. They have my favorite quarterback, Baker Mayfield. I'm a Cleveland fan. We've mentioned that last week. Sad for them to lose again to Las Vegas but sad for them to lose again this week to Las Vegas. But Baker Mayfield, he was actually Tom Brady's LFG Player of the Week. Solid outing from him. He had a couple, I think it was 2 passing touchdowns, at least 1 or 2, and that rushing touchdown, which just surprised the heck out of me. I thought that was really good by him. So yeah, I would like to see that Baker Mayfield that we knew back from the draft and when he played in those Cleveland days when he was that running, gunning kind of quarterback, because you don't really expect it from him, right? He doesn't look like he would be that quick receiver, but he's smart. He knows what to do with the ball. He knows he knows how to read a defense, and he knows where to run it if he can run it to just pick up a couple yards. And when you put him down on the 1 or 2 yard line, he's dangerous, And he said that he said he wakes up feeling dangerous.
Yep, I'll say he was as far as ESPN goes, he was the 5th highest scoring person overall in fantasy this week. He ended up with 28.88 points. He went 30 for 47, 347 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, no interceptions or fumbles, ran it 4 times for 10 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah.
And he's only rostered in 72.6% of ESPN leagues. So I have a sneaking suspicion he's going to end up on a lot of people's waiver wires this week.
Man, I hope
going
so.
Forward.
I really hope so. He's a good quarterback in my opinion.
And then Nico Collins, we were just talking about Houston receivers. He was the second with 33 points. Justin Fields, that one took me by surprise, especially with Pittsburgh losing. Ended up finishing with 31.98 points. That one took me by surprise.
Yeah, I actually I put him on as one of our fantasy matchups for next week. We'll get into that in a couple minutes, but we'll talk about. I want to talk about him in a second too. Yeah.
And then Jaden Daniels, we were talking about him a minute ago at the beginning of the broadcast. Ended up 22.1 points statistic wise, 26 for 30. Put that in perspective. This man threw the ball, attempted 30 times, and completed 26 of them. As a professional in the NFL. Think about that for a second.
What was his official passer rating? You don't have to calculate it. You just have to look it up.
I'm looking at it right now. So this, I think this is just so far for the season. So the last 4 games, it's 107.4.
Okay.
Oh, I lied. QBR was 73.4. My bad.
Okay.
I read reading. But which is still pretty damn impressive, especially as a rookie.
Yeah.
And then he had 1 interception. All right, not the end of the world. He's still a rookie. 1 touchdown, threw for 230 yards, ran 8 times for 47 yards with a touchdown.
Yeah, his running looked like he knew exactly what he was supposed to be doing, which honestly kind of takes me by surprise because I think it was after week 1 or week 2. Washington said they were going to try to get him to stay more in a pocket. They were going to try to limit him on his running, which I really thought was a dumb decision. So I'm glad to see him taking off and moving the ball with his feet, getting the yards, getting the first downs, just avoiding the hits. You can see he can just avoiding contact. He's just getting the ball where it needs to be, getting a couple yards to pick up, and then setting his team up for a good another 10 yards chunk to get another first down and just keep moving the chains and give his wide receivers the opportunities.
Yep, 100%. And he's got Washington number 1 in their division. So, and he's ESPN Fantasy 93.8 rostered. So if those 6% or so of those that don't have him, that'll be another one on the waiver wire. I think that people will grab.
Yeah, keep an eye on him for sure. I don't know why he's not registered or rostered in 100%.
Neither do I. I think it's just the fact that he's a rookie and
That could
people
be
are a little worried about picking him up. So I guess we can go the flip side of that real quick. Lowest scorings, Cardinals and Bills defenses, -4, -3 points.
Yeah.
I
mean, you got that with defenses sometimes. They don't really score a lot. But have you seen the flip side of the defensive scoring with the 49ers? 23 points. So,
well, I mean, they had a defensive touchdown,
6 sacks, an interception, and 2 forced fumbles.
Yeah, I mean, I would rather play New England, which
yeah. You always come in with that little asterisk right there. I'm always like, hey, look at this team, and you're like, look who they're playing. But yeah. you're right. They were playing New England. Granted, New England scoring a lot more than they did last year, so that's something. But yeah, I agree with you. The defenses just weren't getting it done last week. At least the Bills against the Ravens, you can't really control that. You got dual threat on you're going up against, but the Cardinals dropping 42 points, or letting 42 points get scored against them in Washington, which I was not expecting Washington to come out that much. I was expecting Washington to have a good team this year, but to put up 42 points against the Cardinals is a little insane to me, and I think that was good. That was a good game.
Oh yeah, 100%. And then we have the kicker on our notes here. Young Hoku for Atlanta at 20 points.
Yeah, I had him in one of my leagues too, and that actually propelled me to victory. In his, he had 4 field goals that were all, I want to say all of them were 50 plus yards, but I think one of them might have been like 46. So he was getting put to work.
Mm-hmm. And he's only rostered in 55.8% of leagues. So
yeah. So and Atlanta is the real deal. Atlanta's a good team this year. That's one of those kickers that you're going to want to pick up if he's available. Kickers are kind of like hit or miss. You kind of focus on what the better team is going to be, but it's tough because kickers can exchange so much throughout the season unless you find someone like Brandon Aubrey who you draft like in the 5th round or some shit in some leagues because guys are like, it's going to work for me. And then you play him against the Browns and he gets like 30 points. Yeah. So, but yeah, if Young Wei Koo is available, Young Ho Koo, sorry, not Young Wei, I'm thinking of baseball. If he's available for you, 20 points, pick him up.
Yep. We already kind of touched our surprise low scorers. Komet.
Yeah, that was one guy. I would like to officially apologize to the viewers for recommending to pick him up last week. I was expecting him to do a lot more, but I mean, in my defense, he came off a great game in week 3. Just couldn't get it done in week 4, not because of a lack of opportunity. It was just a solid defense working against him. So yeah, if you still want to bench him, maybe keep him, look at him maybe later in the year, but yeah, we'll move on from Komet. I won't talk about him again.
Yeah, some people is a sore subject. I picked him up in a couple of my leagues, but Ramondre Stevenson, going back to New England. The man's fumbled in all 4 games. Honestly, if I'm like I said last week, I'm avoiding anyone from New England. I don't care who it is.
Yeah.
Not touching him.
Now I will say, here's me hitting you with the asterisk. He fumbled, but they haven't all been fumble losses, so he's recovered some of them. But last week against the 49ers, he did lose it, and not like it was going to cost him the game or anything, but it was he's got a streak going and not one that you want to keep going. So I mean, he's fumbled in all 4 games, and he didn't have a lot of points to begin with anyways in the week, so not really worth my time.
Fumbles, whether they're recovered or not, still counts as a fumble against you, and you lose points, at least fantasy-wise.
Yeah. So. No, I don't think... I thought it only counted for fumbles lost in fantasy. if you recover or your team recovers the fumble, I don't think you lose fantasy points. It might be different depending on the league, but I'm pretty sure that's the standard ESPN scoring, if I'm not mistaken.
Hang on, let me look. Scoring. Kicking.
While you're looking that up, one of the low scorers that, I mean, we talked about it earlier with the Jets and the Broncos game, that really kind of just pisses me off is Bo Nix had 6.7 points, right? With a touchdown pass. You take that touchdown pass away, he's got 2.7 points in the game. And then, I mean, I know the Jets defense has some good players, but to hold a quarterback to 2.7 fantasy points is pretty surreal. And that's why I say he's unpredictable, because last week he put up, what, 33 points?
Yeah, I don't know if it was quite that high, but I think he had a pretty good stat line last week.
Well, I mean, like team points, I should say. That should have clarified. Week 3, he had whatever team points he had. Who did the Bengals or the Bengals? Who did the Broncos? Who did they play last week? I'm tripping out. The Tampa Bay. That's right. Tampa Bay. Yeah, 26-7. That was the final score.
Yeah. So looking at it, it is in fact it's only fumbles lost. So
whoa.
Lose points for.
I was right. Sully was wrong.
Shut your mouth.
Mark it on the calendar, everybody. This is a day to be remembered. Day to be remembered.
Yeah. So going back to shut up. Yeah, Bo Nix last week put up 19.3 fantasy points.
Okay, and last week.
Didn't throw for a touchdown, but ran for a touchdown.
Yeah, this was his first NFL passing touchdown. But still only getting 6.7 points against the defenses. The Jets defense is just embarrassing, in my opinion.
I mean, hey, Jets have one of the best defenses. Sauce Gardner's a lockdown player.
Yeah, but I mean, I mean, what other big names do they have on that defense? That's the only one that comes to mind for me. It's probably because he's the most notable on that team, but he can't play everywhere at once. But to lock a quarterback down like that is impressive, though.
I mean, have you watched that man play? That dude's everywhere on the field.
I absolutely love watching Sauce Gardner play. And the attitude that he brings along it with it as well is just so fun.
Yes. All right. I think that's pretty much all the big stuff I got.
Yeah.
All right. Fantasy matchups for next week. This one's going to be fun.
Yeah, we talked about it earlier, but go ahead.
Well, we'll start off with your team, Cleveland. That would be Jaden Daniels going against Cleveland. Yeah. Jaden Daniels going to have 500 passing yards, 200 rushing yards. Obviously, I'm being fucking dramatic here, exaggerating. But honestly, if the man doesn't put up 25-plus fantasy points, regardless of how he gets it done, I'll be surprised.
Yeah. I think, just watching, I really paid attention a lot to the Cleveland game just because they're my favorite team to watch. I watched them blow a lot of coverage last week against Vegas, and it was just easy stuff. They were letting the running back by on a quick block and release. They were letting the tight ends out. They were losing the wide receivers down the lines. They were letting the quarterback sneak through for Gardner Minshew of all people. No disrespect. That sounded a little disrespectful to him, but all right, maybe there's a little disrespectful there, but they're letting him through, and he's rushing for 5-6 yards, and it's guys that are dropping coverages and they shouldn't be. It's easy, basic football that they're dropping, they're losing, and I think with Jaden Daniels and the immediate threat that he has of either passing the ball and throwing it deep, or running for a first down, or even scrambling to get out of trouble, I think Cleveland has got their hands full. But Cleveland has Myles Garrett. So that's going to be a great match. I think with the experience of Myles Garrett, I predict him to have 2+ sacks, at least 2 sacks.
Everybody write that down. So if you guys get that wrong on any of your DraftKings bets, you know who to blame. Okay.
I think he's going to have two sacks.
I mean, we'll see. Myles Garrett is an animal of a human being.
He sure is. Well, he clubbed, was it Kenny? Nah, not Kenny Pickett. One of those.
Mason Rudolph.
Mason Rudolph with his helmet. Pittsburgh,
Yep.
yeah. You know what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
Oh, man, yeah.
Another one will be Justin Fields against Dallas, especially how well he did against Indy this week. I know it's Indianapolis. Their defense isn't as stout as Dallas is supposed to be, but I think Dallas just lost one of their star defensive tackles or defensive ends for like 6 to 8 weeks. So I think Dallas isn't hearing that way.
They are notable for their cornerbacks, but I know one of them's out. I think it's Bland. I think is the one that's out for the year.
Mhm.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, Dallas is just they're in rough shape this year, so we'll see how they move forward with trying to get some wins, squeak some wins out. But I mean, they barely beat the Giants 20-15 this week.
Yeah, riveting fucking game on Thursday night.
And they moved to 2-2. They're 2 wins on the season. Cleveland and the Giants. All right, let's not rev up the hype train for the Cowboys just yet. It's
I mean, this is their
still
year.
early. It always is. It's the same with Cleveland. It's always their year. But what I agree with you, Steelers have been doing a lot of scoring. They were down early by a lot against Indianapolis. They came back and they scored a lot of points to make it a close game. Granted, they lost, but still. So that would be a good game to watch. But the only thing to maybe add to their factor for the Cowboys side of things is that they can score late. So if the Steelers get ahead and they start coasting, I don't think these teams play each other a lot. So that's something that you can look forward to. But again, the Steelers have a coach in Mike Tomlin. He knows what he's doing. He's going to coach his guys through it. If they do get an early lead, a big lead, he's not going to tell them to let go of the gas. He's going to tell them to keep pressing that gas pedal because Dak Prescott, when given the right opportunity to clutch up, most of the time chokes, but in some cases in a regular season game when it doesn't matter, he may come back and pull a win out. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I have a feeling that might be pretty high scoring as far as quarterbacks on both sides of the ball, on both teams getting a good amount of opportunities to throw the ball, especially going to CeeDee Lamb with Dak Prescott and Justin Fields being able to make the moves that he clearly was able to pull off this last week against Indy.
Oh yeah.
So I think fantasy wise, it's a good matchup. I see on the notes here we got Sam Darnold against the Jets.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where I don't know how I feel about it. I like the matchup because of Darnold, but I don't like the matchup because of the defense in the Jets. But Sam Darnold's been in the league for a while. He's from the Jets, so he knows a little bit of that that routine. So now, granted, he didn't play under their head coach. I forget his name, the bald guy, but I think he's got it. He's been putting up a lot of points. He's looking really solid this year, and with the Jets not being able to really sustain a lot of high scoring games on offense, I think that if Minnesota takes an early lead, a big lead, there's just no recovering from it. So
at least for them, I don't even think they need a big lead. I think 10 point lead, and I think they're good.
But then you got Rodgers, who's played against Minnesota a lot in his career. So that's the other side of it. That it's just one of those weird matchups, right? Darnold came from the Jets. Rodgers played a lot against Minnesota. It's just anything can happen, right? It could trigger something within Aaron Rodgers to say this is a team that I've beaten a lot in the past, and he may just unload. Who knows? Who knows? So just if I had to pick a side, I'm a little bit of a Minnesota fan. Although I'm rooting for the Jets because they're the underdog, but yeah, I would say Darnold over the Jets.
Yeah. We got Alvin Kamara against Kansas City.
Yeah, that's one of those teams. Kansas City is that just isn't surprising me this year. I mean, honestly, I guess I shouldn't say that. They are surprising me, but in a bad way. They're winning, but they're not winning by a lot. They're not looking like the team that they normally do, and they just lost Rashee Rice
Yep.
to
Out with an ACL.
a potential ACL. They haven't confirmed it yet, but that's what they feared. And to happen on a collision with your own quarterback is just
Yeah.
it's sad. It's also sad because I put him in another one of my bet lines and he didn't get a damn yard. So yeah. But Kamara's going off. The Saints offense is solid. You get one of those explosive runs from Derek Carr. Now he's starting to cool off the last 2 weeks, but they're still putting up a lot of points. They're still averaging, between 20 to 30 points a game. I don't think Kansas City can sustain that level of offense.
Especially without Rice.
Exactly. And you take Rice out, and most teams are already doubling up Travis Kelce. I mean, who else are you going to throw to, right? You got Worthy, who makes some incredible catches, but if you know that that's going to be one of your primary targets, and you know that Kelsey's getting double teamed, that really takes out a majority of your offense. And Mahomes, granted, can scramble, but he's not a big running quarterback. Not like not like Jaden Daniels, at least in my opinion. At least
not what he was.
Yeah, right. Not what he was. Ever since that ankle injury a couple years ago, he's just not really been the same. He can still move the ball around, but it's just it's not one of his primary things. He really only likes to run when he's in trouble and scrambling. So
yeah, I agree. I mean,
the next matchup, again, coming from the Cleveland fan side of me, is Flacco against Jacksonville. If Richardson doesn't play, he's still questionable moving forward. I think Flacco's going to play from what I was reading on the injury reports from Richardson, just to give him a couple of more days to heal up that knee. But it's against Jacksonville, right? Like, Flacco is such an experienced quarterback, and he did so well with the Colts last week. He did not skip a beat from the last game that he played with Cleveland when he led him on a playoff run. So I would love to see him step up in another big opportunity and really score a lot of points. So that's another potential waiver wire pickup. I know he's probably not in a lot. I actually haven't even looked at his statistics on ESPN. I'm sure he's not rostered in many leagues at all. So that's one guy to look at on the waiver wire. Let's see, rostered in 0.2 leagues.
Nice.
So I can almost guarantee you, as a matter of fact, I will guarantee you, he is available in your league right now. Go pick him up. Claim him.
Remember, if you're part of those 0.2 leagues, drop a comment in this on your YouTube or Spotify and let Zach know that he was incorrect. Okay? He was, and add a screenshot. Hell, I don't even care. Go ahead.
I'm over here. I'm riding high, man. I got you earlier about that whole fumbles lost thing. So I'm on cloud 9 right now.
He gets one thing right, calls me wrong on one thing, and just riding cloud 9, like you said. But again, you got an issue if you're in one of those 0.2 leagues, which kudos to you then, as these guys apparently know something we don't. Go ahead and leave us an email. Hell, too, you can go ahead and email. I'll plug our email, pigskinprognosis@gmail.com. Go ahead and leave it. I'll let Zach go ahead and read that email, too, if you end up having an issue.
Yeah, I'll read it out. I'll read it out loud next week. So call me out. But
absolutely. That's what we're here for. We're not
0.2 roster. Yeah, 100%. We're not professional at all. Definitely
plus fantasy is all luck for the most part. I mean, I've had people argue with me that it's 90% skill and 10% luck, and it's, in my opinion at least, it's the other way around. Obviously, you kind of have an idea of who players are and stuff like that, but you can't control injuries, you can't control stuff like that. Who's going to go off each week and stuff like that? So
yeah,
it's a crapshoot.
I'm 2-1 in 3 of my leagues. I'm 3-1 in another one, and I'm 4-0 in another one. And I really, all I do is, I do pay attention to some of the news, but mainly I just move players that are out and put players that are in. So, yeah.
And he listens to Pigskin Prognosis.
Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Another matchup that I made a note on was that we kind of touched on earlier was the Buffalo side of the things. But C.J. Stroud against Buffalo, he's not looking like the quarterback that we once saw last year. Not trying to take anything away from him, but he's just not putting up the numbers that we're used to. So maybe that's one of the games that ignites that fire. Maybe it's a little bit of a shootout between Allen and Stroud. But I would say if I had to pick either one of those quarterbacks, I would go with Stroud on that.
When I say you're going CJ Stroud, I'm going with the wide receiver. I'm going with Stephon Diggs. I'm going to go ahead and put something out there too that you all can hold me to. Stephon Diggs, 100+ yards and a touchdown against Buffalo, his old team.
100+ and a touchdown. Okay, all right.
That's what I'm thinking.
Mark
CJ
that
Stroud's
down.
gonna get him the ball. Yep, yeah. If I'm end up being wrong, please call me out. Come Monday morning.
Yeah, send us an email, write us a comment. I'm gonna have Sully read that out on the stream next week.
Yep. 100 yards against his old team. The man's gonna have a vendetta. I feel it coming, which is gonna help boost Stroud's numbers. But hey, we'll see when Sunday rolls through. But it should be a good game. I'm excited for that one too.
Yeah.
I feel like the bad matchups we had. I feel like we pretty much touched on all of these. Only one I think we haven't is Burrow against Baltimore, but that's just because it's Baltimore and Burrow hasn't looked the same.
Yeah, but again, that's kind of like what I mentioned earlier with the Jets and the Vikings. It's one of those matchups. Now, granted, I'm going to say this, but Jets and Vikings are not in the same division, but Baltimore and Cincinnati are. So it's one of those games where I really think it could go either way. Baltimore is on a hot streak right now, and Cincinnati is in desperate need of a win to stay close in that title race. I mean, count the Browns out for the season, right? Unless the Browns magically figure it out somehow, but I doubt that they will. If you take the Browns out of it, the Cincinnati Bengals are in last place. Well, they're tied for last place because the Browns are 1-3. So you take Burrow, who is a really good quarterback and has a lot of offensive weapons, and his defense is pretty good too. And you put him up against Baltimore, that, it's got to be high scoring. I know that Baltimore can score a lot of points. You need Burrow to score a lot of points too. Yeah. Which I don't think that's going to happen for Burrow. He's a great quarterback, but I just do not think he is going to score the points that he needs to beat Baltimore. It's going to be close, in my opinion, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree. All right.
The other, we did have one more on here that I wanted to just push past real quick, but that was Cortland Sutton versus Las Vegas. Watching Bo Nix's performance against the Jets was just brutal. Only throwing one touchdown, which granted was to Cortland Sutton, but he's only thrown one passing touchdown in 4 weeks. Think about that. One passing touchdown in 4 weeks. That's not a good stat to have.
Nope. Denver's another team I'm avoiding.
Yeah. Overall, avoid the Denver offense until they can give you something solid for 3 to 4 weeks in a row. Yep. And you got to start fresh because the Jets game was a wash. The Bucks game, I don't know what happened. I don't know if the Bucks started their bench players. They only scored 7 points. But I would just stay away from Cortland Sutton. He's one of the top receivers in the league, but just stay away from him for the week against Vegas because Vegas has a really good secondary, in my opinion. I think they can do a really good job of swatting away those balls. The only thing that I would say that the Broncos offense may have a chance of doing is running the ball, but I mean, hit or miss. Sometimes their D line shows up for Vegas, sometimes it doesn't.
Yep. Especially after 2 weeks ago when they played Carolina, their defense is pretty much non-existent. Also, too, keep an eye on Max Crosby if he plays. He said he was supposed to play this week. He missed last week. Keep an eye on that. That's a big boost on their defense if he does play.
And I was going to exactly. If you bring him back, it's game over for that running game. Max Crosby is an absolute animal. We were talking earlier about Myles Garrett. Max Crosby is probably the number 2 in the league, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, 100%.
He's just insane. Well, all right, I take that back. I like Aiden Hutchinson because I'm a Michigan fan too. But
yeah, I'm watching them win too right now.
Yeah.
On my second monitor. Yeah. I mean, next thing we gotta talk about is waiver wires. Honestly, in my opinion, dude, I'm looking through on ESPN right now. People are at least available in the majority of my leagues that I'm in, and just in general, I'm not impressed with any of these, dude. Jerry Jeudy, it's on the list. Jalen Warren's still out, and there was rumors he might have came back last week, but I mean, You can stream defenses if you'd like. And I mean, ESPN right now has got Keenan Allen being the number one free agent.
Yeah. I mean, looking at really like player, I mean, it's tough. This week, waiver wire is going to be tough. You got, I mean, really the two that I would look at are Mayfield. He's rostered in only like 70 some percent, 72.6%. And Fields, who's only rostered in 34% of ESPN leagues. So those are two quarterbacks that you can look at with, at least with the matchup coming up this week. Baker's going to be against Atlanta. And the Saints kind of marched on Atlanta, ended up losing, but still marched on them, got some decent passing yards. But Justin Fields is looking solid. He's averaging around 18 points. He's the 6th ranked quarterback on ESPN. I just think he's going to look good. Did I say he's against? I said he's against Cowboys, right? Did I say Indianapolis? That's who he just played. I think I meant to say Cowboys. But yeah, so he's one of the guys out there that I would look at picking up if you're available. If he's available in your league.
Yep. Streaming defenses, I would say Seahawks playing the Giants. That would be the best one. Maybe the Packers against the Rams. Based on how the Rams performed last week.
But I mean, I was going to say if you base it off of the Rams performance, sure. But if you base it off of the Green Bay side of performance, they give up 31 points to the Vikings.
I mean, the Vikings who've got Justin Jefferson.
yeah. Which, I mean, God, absolute disaster on Green Bay side. How can you let that man through?
And he's getting the ball, dude. If he's open, if that man's got a yard of separation, he's getting the ball.
Yeah, that's a valid point. I'll take that.
But I mean, yeah, I think I agree with what you said, man. This week, I think it's going to be kind of a shit show for waiver wires. Honestly, no one really stood out. Even if they did, I don't think it was going to be anything that they'd sustain. I mean, obviously, we were wrong last week with Komet. And by we, I mean you.
Yeah. I don't know. I really don't know. Defense-wise, I'm just looking at the numbers, looking at the schedules, and
not impressed.
I'm not. It's tough. It's really tough. I mean, 49ers had a good defensive game. I talked about that earlier, but they're playing Arizona, who they're a pretty good team. Washington made them look really silly, but they may put up some points. They got that little chip on their shoulder this week, I think.
And plus, it's a divisional game too. So
yeah, I mean, one defense that I would say is probably really solid altogether is the Lions defense, but they're bye next week. So, and then they play Dallas. So maybe that's like an opportunity for you to pick them up if somebody drops them on a bye week.
True,
but. Then on the other side of thing, the other team that's on a bye is Philadelphia, and I would rather have Philly's defense than the Lions' defense, at least early in this season so far. So I don't know, and because after the bye week in Week 5, the Philadelphia goes to Cleveland, or I'm sorry, Cleveland goes to Philly. So a home game against Cleveland, yeah. So those two, I would say, that's my call. If waiver wire defenses. Lions and Eagles, if they get dropped, don't pick them up to play them. Pick them up to keep them.
Yeah, don't pick them up to play them. Let's make this clear. They are on bye weeks next week.
Do not play them in Week 5. Do not play them in Week 5.
Or do. At the end of the day, I'm not your fantasy manager, so and I'm not playing you. If I'm playing you, I want you to put them in. But.
What if you could play a team on a bye week? You know how defenses start with 10 points. You just got 10 extra points because they would never go down. Like that'd be a boss move right there. But
yeah, have your league manager adjust it.
Yeah.
All right. So we try to keep these podcasts to an hour. We're running low on time. I know there's been a lot of info, but we got an hour or 10 minutes left. So we'll plow through injuries. Plow through this real quick. Christian McCaffrey, number 1 pick in a lot of people's leagues, mine included, and he's been killing me. Granted, his backup Mason's been pretty good. He's looking at ramping up to about 4 to 6 weeks. This is all coming from Sports Med Analytics on Instagram. We'll tag him in the comment as like last time. Jonathan Taylor, mild high ankle, possibly sit in Week 5. Keep an eye on his practice. Nick Chubb's coming back to practice this week. probably leaning toward week 7 return, plus very slow ramp up. Keep an eye on that. Christian Watson, high ankle, probably going to be out 2 to 4 weeks. Looking at realistically, at least for sure, missing week 5 and 6, plus re-injury when he comes back. Rashid Rice, we talked about him earlier with the ACL. Anthony Richardson, hip pointer and some strains. Lean toward playing week 5, just with less running, which I think would be good for him. Tua Tagovailoa, Dolphins just played earlier. See, symptom free. Weak target. He got put on IR. Obviously, that's realistic when he's looking at coming back. Devontae Adams. He's got a hamstring injury, and wide receivers with hamstring injuries usually about a 2 weeks. So keep an eye on him playing. If he does for practice, keep an eye on him. Lean toward him missing week 5 though. Cooper Kupp and the Rams. We talked about him too. Coming back week 5 or 7 and 8. I'm sorry. Week 8 more likely with a little bit of a dip and a re-injury risk. Bijan Robinson, limited practice with a hamstring. If he plays on Thursday, it's looking like he'll more than likely play. Mike Evans is going to kind of plow through the rest of these big ones. Mike Evans, knee and calf, also plays Thursday. Keep an eye on Tuesday and Wednesday to see if he actually does end up playing. Jordan Love came back, looked all right, especially coming off of what I thought was a torn ACL and MCL, but I'm not a doctor. So
You're a football
Cowboys, doctor. I wish. No, I'm just reading. I just know how to read, and that's barely. Cowboys got 2. DeMarcus Lawrence, who we talked about earlier, 4 to 8 weeks. Looking at probably week 5 or 6, or I'm sorry, average out 5 to 6. Micah Parsons, high ankle, average probably is going to be out 2 to 4 weeks. Look at him coming back week 8.
Micah Parsons, that's really going to affect the defense for sure, the Cowboys defense.
But that's, again, pretty much it for the injury side of the house. Keep an eye on a lot of these people with whether they practice overall the rest of the week. And some of these guys, veteran rest, stuff like that, shouldn't be too worried about. But keep an eye on those. And again, that came from Med Sports Analytics. Again, we'll tag him in both descriptions, so you guys can go check him out on Instagram. And give him a like and a follow. And follow us, especially if you're into this. This is where we're getting all of our info from. All right, bet stuff, and then we can, talk about whatever else we want. I think we hit pretty much a lot of good points on the head.
Yeah, we did. All right, bets for this week. Best bets, in my opinion. Tampa Bay is 1.5 favorites over Atlanta. I think it's going to be a close game. I do think that it's going to favor Tampa Bay. Kirko can sling it, but, 1.5 point favorites over Atlanta. You got Minnesota is a 1.5 point favorite over the Jets. Did I say Tampa Bay 1.5 point favorites?
You did. I was just about to clarify that. Okay. They're underdogs.
They are underdogs. Tampa Bay is 1.5 underdogs versus Atlanta.
Look at them to at least cover that spread.
Yeah,
I mean, honestly, I think they might win that game. But
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's. Thank you for about to call me out. I'm glad. I can read. I can read.
Apparently not.
Apparently, and I even typed this up, so it's even worse. Minnesota 1.5 point favorites against the Jets. I read that one correctly.
Yay, proud of you.
Yeah, we talked about that one. Again, I think that one's going to be a close game, but I would say Minnesota's going to cover that spread by 2 points or more. Washington 3.5 point favorites over Cleveland. That is in my opinion, easy win. So throw some money on there. That's what I'm going to do. So
at least do your own research.
If you do it too, and we all lose, then we all go down together. So
yep.
And then the other best bet I have is Indianapolis is a 2.5 point underdog versus Jacksonville. I think if Flacco plays, you could safely bet that they're going to cover that spread. So
yep.
Yeah. Bad bets, in my opinion. These are just games that, IMO, in my opinion. I'm not too comfortable with betting on them. I don't know if they're going to cover the spread or if they're going to do a money line thing. And just the odds are just not something that I would want to put money down on. That is the Carolina-Chicago game. You got Chicago scores a lot of points. Carolina scores a lot of points. It's just a back and forth battle.
Carolina scored a lot of points the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, all right, true. But up and coming now, especially after you put Dalton in. So we'll see how that goes. We talked about it earlier, the division rival between Baltimore and Cincinnati. Close game, but I think Baltimore is going to take it. But I didn't like the point spread. I don't remember what it was when I was looking at it earlier.
It's 2.5. I'm looking at it right now for
Yeah,
Baltimore.
I mean, maybe, but I don't know. Just I'm uncomfortable. I'm going to stay away from that one.
Do your research, like we've said before.
Buffalo and Texas. That's another shootout that I think is just going to be a high scoring game, or it's going to be low scoring. Either both teams are going to show up and play, and they're going to clutch up and just sling it, or it's going to be just a lopsided. No, it's defense strong. I don't want to say lopsided. Defense strong game, and it's not going to be that much. But the spread is Houston is the 1 point favorite over the Bills. So, yeah.
Yep.
Another one, Arizona 49ers. Again, Arizona's a good team. 49ers look like they're a good team. They've been scoring a lot of points, but against who? Not really good opponents, in my opinion. So, yeah, another one of those teams, the games that I would just avoid because I think Arizona could put up some good points. But 49ers just came off a solid defensive game. Granted, it's against New England, but yeah, you never know. And then we talked about it earlier, too, the Las Vegas-Denver game. Just too unpredictable in scores. Denver came off of a 27-point win against the Bucks last week, or 2 weeks ago, I should say now. Week 4, barely, and by barely, I mean the smallest amount of victory you could win a game by, which was 1 point over the Jets, and only with throwing 1 touchdown in the entire game. It was a 10-9 victory, and they didn't look good. Granted, it was a rainy game, yeah, sure, whatever, but
Excuses.
Yeah, right.
You're a professional.
Yeah. And then another game that maybe midway through the week, it all kind of depends on Rashid Rice's final diagnosis because he hasn't officially been diagnosed with that ACL injury yet, which would be the New Orleans and KC game. Both offenses are slinging it. KC's undefeated this year. New Orleans is scoring a lot. What did I say? Like averaging somewhere in that high 20s, mid 30 points per game. So one of those games where it can go either way, especially because Patrick Mahomes just has that level that he can just reach out and clutch up if he needs to. So I would stay away from those games. That would be we'll call them bad bets, I guess, for something that I'm just not comfortable betting on. At least the spread wise, maybe a money line game, but. I like to bet spreads because you get a little bit more of an odds, and if you throw a couple together, you get a good parlay. So, yeah,
a little more wiggle room.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I'm a money line guy. That's me, just because you get better odds out of it. But again, parlays can't go bad with that. They are harder to hit, and if you do hit them, good on you. My buddy hit one last week on baseball actually, and won like $2,900. So good on you. Hopefully, he'll end up listening to this and. He knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much coming up on almost the hour, and I feel like we hit a lot of information. I can't really think of anything else we got to add.
Yeah. We talked about a lot. The only, the real thing that we try to bring people in on, which is the waiver wire, is the 1 week that we're like, I don't know. The waiver wire looks a little weird this week. So, I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably already involved in the fantasy football thing. You know who to pick up. You'll at least look at a couple different players. You know how to do your research. So, hell, if you're here listening to our podcast, maybe you don't know how to do your research. I don't know. I'm just dogging you. So, but yeah, that's something to look forward to. Next week, hopefully, we get a little bit better of a waiver wire. We get see how this lineup of games. I'm excited. I'm excited for this week of games. There's a lot of good games. A lot of now we're starting to develop those players that we want to watch every week. Jaden Daniels, Sam Darnold, a couple of return players that you want to keep an eye on, and Joe Flacco, Justin Fields, Andy Dalton. It's that we're starting to get into that routine now. We've played 4 games. All right, the nerves are starting to settle down. We've all played a division rival, so now it's just, well, I guess not everybody, but
settle in and play some October football.
Exactly, yeah. Now it's starting to get cooler outside. We're starting to have that development of who's good and who's bad and who's kind of meh. who's had good weeks, who's consistently having good weeks. We'll see. And I think after this week, we can really, really start to dial in on our top fantasy scores of potentially of the year, and hopefully have some, I guess what I would call permanent waiver wire, somebody that is available now that you should look at picking up and keeping, at least benching, so that way no one else gets a hold of them.
Yep. Hopefully help you win some championships later on down the season, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much it that I can think of. I think this is a good day. We filmed this on Monday night. The Lions game's still going. 2 minutes left in this game. They're up 42-29 on Seattle. Been a good game.
Yeah.
And yeah, filmed it on National Podcast Day, which I thought was pretty fitting since this is our second podcast episode. So it'll be up tomorrow. I think we said 7 a.m. is what I think we said are going to post East Coast time.
Yeah, we're going to drop it a little bit earlier. Last time we dropped it around 9 a.m. Eastern, I think. 9 a.m. Eastern. So yeah, we're gonna drop this a little bit earlier. We're gonna try to release it at. Did you say? I think we actually dropped it at 9 a.m. Eastern.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that what I just said? That's what I just said.
Yeah. Maybe we'll drop at 6 just so people, if you end up stumbling across this, go on your way into work or whatever, you'll have a chance to listen to our dumbass voices on there. So maybe we'll do 6. Look, be on the lookout for 6. We'll go for 6 a.m. East Coast time. So
yeah.
But yeah, Zach, it's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Enjoyed this just like we do every week. I mean, every week. We did it last week for the first time, but it's been fun.
Yeah.
I'd look forward to talking to you again next week. Hopefully we'll have some more info that's not just, hey, there's no waiver wires really this week.
Yeah, right. That's the overall goal. But I mean, still, we're giving them some decent information here with scores, teams to look out for, and hopefully that provides them a little bit more insight on players to look at, individually, along with defenses, and kind of pick up a little bit more stuff from there instead of just who's on waiver wire and who's not. Because that's because we could give you advice on waiver wire and that person may not be available for you to pick up. So, yeah.
But all right, have a good rest of your guys' week. Zach, you as well.
Thanks, Ellie. You too. Just remember, we'll be live on Tuesday, right before the waiver wire on Wednesday, every week. Catch us here on YouTube and on Spotify. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, share. But yeah, any comments you guys have or questions you may have, feel free to shoot it to us. And we made a couple of bold statements this week, so make sure you keep us in check for next week.
Yep, looking forward to it.
So, all right, everybody, have a great day. Get some great waiver wires today.
All right, have a good one, everybody.
Thanks, guys.